This is a 2003 Honda XR50. As you can see, when you turn the handlebar, the throttle start jerking up and down. So we're suspecting having a throttle cable that's in a bind, or that might be too tight, where even just turning the handlebar will actuate the throttle cable. So here, all you have to do to fix this is going to be essentially taking everything apart for the throttle cable as if you would want to change it. We're going to probably lube it at the same time, spray some dry silicone spray inside the cable sleeve. Here is just trying to remove it. You'll have to slide it sideways out of the barrel hole at the end for the throttle handle. Then the mount itself, normally it will just do a pass through. Might be some piece of plastics in there not to lose to make sure that we put it back in place. And this one has a rubber bumper style at the top to make sure the cable don't slip out. So just taking out the cable, just as if you would be replacing it. We'll just be put it back in, but we'll make sure that the cable is not in a bind or twisted, which will cause essentially the cable to be tighter than it needs to be. And that applies to any kind of motocross or dirt bike, pit bike, even bigger ones. You'll have to deal with the same thing. So again, there's a rubber bumper style for this one, just in the way to keep the cable from falling out. So not all of them will have this. And this essentially is the adjustment screw that I'm messing with to let the cable fall through. And there's your essentially your cable holder. Make sure it's not touching the housing or anything like that. Now the cable would come out out of the hole. You'll need to come and undo the nut for the adjustment. It'll stay with the cable. That's for the top portion. So here I'm just making sure the cable is sliding in and out of the sleeve properly, and I'm going to try to twist it to make sure that on this end it's not hung up in the middle of the sleeve where it's in a bind, and you can tell sometime by the shape of the sleeve that where the inner cable could get snag. This one had issues more towards the carb, but it's good to go on both ends and try to actuate it. You'll hear the carburetor valve also actuate as you pull on it. That's a good time too to just get within the sleeve and spray some lubricant. For the bottom side, depending on your carburetor, it'll look different. Sometimes it's a 2-straw entry with a choke. Sometimes it's sideways. Sometimes it's vertical down. This one has a steel straw vertical down. You'll have an adjustment screw, a retaining screw for the straw. I'm just deciding to pull the straw out. Therefore, it's going to loosen up the cable. I didn't want it to open it up and mess with the valve and the spring or anything like that. It's kind of a tight fit in there to pull everything out vertically. So I just left it in the carburetor, but I still took the straw out to make sure the cable is not in a snag or bound somewhere. And since the top is already taken apart, this bottom part should be pretty loose, as long as you don't pull on the top. So just reinserting the straw itself which is the brass piece on here. The metal straw is technically loose in there. However, when you put both ends, top and bottom, together, it'll be pushed tight from the sleeve and from that brass insert inside the carburetor. The nut that you see is just the locking nut for the adjustment. So size-wise, I think it's a 10 mil nut. The brass one, however, for me, a 7 wouldn't work, a 8 wouldn't work, a 6 wouldn't work. So I just had to go with either a pair of needle nose or my fingers just to get it tight whenever I was doing the adjustment. But that's the only adjustment you have down here. So once you take it apart, just make sure again that it's not into a bind. I went pretty much middle way right now just to get myself a starting point with. Reassembly, obviously backward, so we're going to thread the cable inside the housing, thread the adjustment nut all the way to get as much cable slack as we can, and then don't forget your guide or your piece of plastic, your retainer. Not sure what different brand will call this. Obviously we're not going to need that all the way adjusted, but just to give ourselves the most amount of slack. And as you can see, there's only one way these can work. The cable will slide into that small slit inside that guide. Good idea to pull the cable as much as you can after. Here just showing you like how it's going to be aligned internally. So we're going to be sliding that barrel inside of that throttle grip, and then it'll follow, there you go, it'll follow that sleeve in that groove inside. Not sure if all bikes are able to be installed like that. Some of them might be too tight in terms of full cable length. You might not be able to do it with the handle inside the handle after. Some of them you have to slide the handle on the handlebar first and then do everything on the handlebar. It's a little bit more tight of a fit. This one comes with 2 screws, 2 Allen screws from the front. Some of them sometimes have one in the front, one in the back, one under. You just got to look around. All of them are pretty much clamshell, so there'll be 2 halves that you'll be able to put back together. No need to tighten it too hard. Yes, this will have your throttle grip slide if it's not tight enough, but for now we're just going to do some testing, so there's no reason to be too tight. So as you saw, the noise is gone from the switching the handlebars side to side. Now we're going to be adjusting the carburetor. Obviously this, I'm pointing out the wrong screw. This would be your air screw, so don't mess with this one too much. So the correct screw is actually behind the choke arm for this bike specifically. You want to get it to temperature. You want to kill your choke essentially. You want to make sure you don't have to use it. And then you're going to unscrew it to reduce your idle screw need of air. And it's going to want to die out a little bit, but you want to bring it to a point where when you rev it and then the throttle spins back, it'll spin back to an idle that's acceptable. It won't lag out, and it won't stick backward, and it also won't try to die whenever you crank the throttle. Now here I'm going to adjust the clutch sensitivity. I'm going to try to reset it. So to do that, loosen up the 14 mil lock nut. There's a slotted screw in there, flathead. You know, tighten it all the way down. Make sure the nut don't spin on you. So bottom it out. Once it's bottom out, you're going to turn it, unscrew it, so counterclockwise. Once you do that, you'll start feeling a slight resistance in the screw once you're unscrewing it. And at that point, you'll stop. And you're going to want to turn it a quarter of a turn back. So here we're turning counterclockwise all the way until you'll feel it. So it looks like almost two and a half turn-ish. And then after that quarter turn, it'll be pointing up for this bike. You'll hold it there, and you'll tighten up the nut. Now the reason I did that is because this bike is an automatic clutch, and in first gear it would almost wheelie from releasing the brake. And this one right now, as you can tell, it got adjusted a little bit better. For this part, I'm installing a new spark plug. My 5-year-old son is filming, so the camera might be a little bit jittery, but pretty simple. I encourage you guys to get a set of socket made for spark plug. There is a rubber grommet at the bottom of it to be able to grab on to the ceramic on the spark plug itself. But I mean, it's very easy. So you're just gonna unscrew it. And put the new one in. There might be a torque spec for this. Normally you want to bottom it out and then snug it a quarter of a turn, half a turn-ish. This one's pretty oily. It's still a 4-stroke, so it's not too bad. New one. These have crush washers at the bottom. It's attached to the thread. You're not going to be able to remove it or lose it. So gonna clean the surface where the spark plug ends if you want to. If not, we just put back the new spark plug. Like I said, tighten it snug. Put the cable back on. There's a part number on it. These ones are the threaded ends. If you end up having one that has the click on end with like more of a car style spark plug, it's not a big deal. You can always unscrew that end where the cap goes on, the plug goes on. So essentially all spark plugs are the threaded end. It's just that cars and bigger bike will have the quick snug fit like click on one, and then the smaller bike sometimes will have the threaded end expose. And to do that, you just unscrew the tip. You just put a pair of pliers on it and then unscrew it. And this is just dielectric grease. I put this pretty much on anything for car connectors and motocross connectors or motorcycle, etc. It'll just keep the water out. Especially if it's something you're expected to take off-road or through rain, through water. Here I'm installing a set of training wheels. So to do that, the peg pivot pin has to come out. These ones were caught up in, they were completely smashed, so pretty much destroyed them in the removal. But these pins will be replaced by bolts. The kit that I got is a cheap kit on Amazon, probably for $70 or $80 for the training wheels. Essentially, no instruction, etc. It's fairly easy to figure out. For the peg themselves, there's a spring in there that'll want to come out whenever that pin is ejected. You'll have to reuse it unless your pegs will be floppy and going everywhere. If not, I'd recommend to lift the bike up. The kickstand will be in the way when you try to install that bar. Right now I'm on the kickstand, so I'll have to get a different setup pretty soon, realizing that. But the bolt itself is longer. It'll stick down, and as you can see, it'll mount up. But now the kickstand is in the way, so I was debating on removing the kickstand. If you kick it up, it'll still clear, so you don't have to remove it. So I would just recommend to leave it there. Now I'm back on the other side. The other side did the same thing, so now I'm holding it up straight. Just tighten up the bolt that are at the pegs into the training wheel frame support. And then the order, you're going to have a washer, the wheel washer, and then a cotter pin, I think, on the exterior. Nothing's really bolted on, it's just kind of put together. Once you do have this set up, you can adjust the height of the wheels in the bike. So loosening it up, the clamp that clamped the training wheel to the frame, to the bar can swing, and then it'll adjust your height on your wheel. So I'm loosening up those clamp bolts right now, and once they're loose, the wheels can be pivoted, and then it's encouraged to have a lean of about maximum of 2-inch clearance. Essentially, if you're leaning left, the right wheel will lift up 2 inches. Um, if you have a kid that's a little bit scared of riding, then you can put it as flat as you can. It will be difficult to turn, but it's still possible. So retightening up those bolts, checking out the clearance, making sure it's not too high or too low. Now it is drivable in the street by an adult. After that, it's fairly difficult. Now that I have the bike on the training wheels, the bike will rest standing up straight. And that also causes the oil to go rest against the Kickstart seal, which is the one that we're looking at right now. And obviously that seal gets abused over time. With the amount of Kickstart, you're going to be stretching that oil seal, and then if it runs hot or if it runs dry, it'll want to start seeping through. It's just a regular press-in oil seal. Dimensions are written on the seal. You'll have 3 numbers. You'll have the inner diameter, the outside diameter, and then the thickness, essentially the depth of the seal, how far it'll go inside the casing if it's an inboard like that. This one specifically, I believe, it's a 13.8 mil ID by 24 mil ID and 5 mil deep. It's fairly easy to pull out. You can use a O-ring pick and pierce through it, or a small flathead head screwdriver just to pry it out. They're not in there very tight to remove them. Once you get the new one, just use a socket to push it in all the way to the correct position. A different perspective here, the oil seal we're dealing with. So to pull it out, I'm just using a flat head against the inner lip, the inner diameter against the shaft. I'll be able to pierce through it and grab it. After that, I cleaned up a little bit of the oil left over, put some oil on the outside diameter of the new seal just to make sure I don't snag it. Push it through by fingers only. I was able to get it started. You can find yourself a socket that's the correct outside diameter you want to push on the outer lip if possible, not the inside one. There are some, including this one, I believe, with a metal casing on the inside, but you just don't want to dent that. It's pretty thin. So after the install, it should be slightly recessed, where the arm itself won't touch it, and then it's just the reverse. So the arm itself, if you didn't see it, is just one bolt to hold it in place. There is a groove inside the shaft right there that the bolt essentially will go through. So you're not bolting to the shaft there. It's splined. You want to get your angle right so when it's resting, it's not in the way. get through the spline, you might have to tap it in or clean those splines. And all the bolt is doing is traveling through that groove on that arm so the shaft can't move left to right. And the splines are making it they can't spin around. So if you're screwing the bolt and it's not going through, you start moving the arm left to right until that bolt find that grooves on that shaft.